people reacted to the Kevin Hart roast from the outside looking in. They were watching on their phones, on their TVs, forming opinions from a distance about what happened, what should have happened, and who was responsible for what. Cam Patterson was not watching from the outside. This is a 27-year-old comedian who just filmed a Netflix movie with Kevin Hart, who came up through Kill Tony in Austin alongside Tony Hinchcliffe, who knows both of these men personally, not as cultural figures, not as names in a controversy, but as people he has shared stages with, learned from, and built his career around. When he sat down with Shannon Sharpe and got asked about the roast, what came out was not a hot take designed to go viral. It was the measured, complicated reaction of someone who was genuinely caught in the middle of two worlds that were colliding in real time. And what he said about the George Floyd joke, why it hit different, even for him, is worth sitting with.
We'd first like to thank Barbershop Cuts and Cocktails for hosting us today in Las Vegas, hidden behind a working barbershop in the Cosmopolitan. This speakeasy brings live music, great cocktails, and one of the best nights on the Strip.
Before we get into what Cam actually said about the roast, you need to understand who he is and why his perspective on this carries weight that a random pundit's opinion simply does not. Cam Patterson is 27 years old. He is from Orlando, Florida. He has been doing stand-up comedy for 5 years. In those 5 years, he went from being a door guy at the Mothership Comedy Club in Austin, literally taking out trash and checking IDs, to performing at Madison Square Garden alongside Kevin Hart. He appeared on SNL. He landed a role in Kevin Hart's Netflix film 72 Hours. And he did it all by grinding through the exact comedy ecosystem that this whole roast controversy is about. He came up through Kill Tony. He lived in Austin. He knows Tony Hinchcliffe personally. He has flown on planes with him, performed alongside him, watched him build Kill Tony into one of the most successful comedy platforms in the world. When people on social media were calling Tony a racist and demanding accountability, Cam was not watching that debate from afar. He was watching it happen to someone he knows. At the same time, Kevin Hart is not just a name to Cam either. Hart is the reason Cam's first major film role exists. Cam auditioned for 72 Hours, walked into a room full of established actors who clearly had more experience, nearly talked himself out of it entirely, and then got the call that he got the part. Kevin Hart is the person who gave him that opportunity. So when Cam Patterson sits across from Shannon Sharpe and gets asked about the roast, he is not somebody with nothing at stake in the answer. He has skin in the game on every side of this conversation. And that is exactly why what he said is worth paying close attention to.
Hosting us today in Las Vegas, hidden behind a working barbershop in the Cosmopolitan. This speakeasy brings live music, great cocktails, and one of the best nights on the Strip. Now, let's get to today's episode. Hello, welcome to another episode of Club Shay Shay. I am your host, Shannon Sharpe. I'm also the proprietor of Club Shay Shay. Stopping by for conversation and drink today is a fan favorite, a rising star in the stand-up world who's selling out theaters and clubs around the world. You might have seen him on Kill Tony and SNL.
One of the things Cam addressed that gets missed in most of the commentary around the Kevin Hart roast is the nature of what a roast actually is and what the expectations around it are supposed to be. He was honest about the fact that he is not personally a roast guy. He said this directly to Shannon Sharpe. He does not like roasts because he cannot take a joke without wanting to fight back. That is just how he is wired. If you come at him, he is coming at you. And in a roast format where you have to sit there and take it from 20 different comedians in a row, that environment is not built for him. But acknowledging that roasts are not his preference is different from pretending he does not understand why they exist and what they are designed to do. He knows the format. He knows the history. He pointed to the Tom Brady roast as a reference point that this kind of content, this kind of boundary-pushing comedy happens at every roast. It is not new. It is not a new agenda. The format has always operated at the edge of what people are comfortable with. What he said next is the most nuanced part of his whole take. He said the comedians at these roasts are trying to hit a line, and sometimes they hit it right on the nail, and sometimes they go over it, And the difference between landing the joke and crossing the line is not always clear until after the fact, when the room has reacted and you can see where the energy went. That framing is important because it separates the craft question from the moral question. The craft question is whether the joke worked. The moral question is whether the joke should have been told at all. And those are two separate conversations that keep getting collapsed into one.
Do you think some of the, you like, okay, you're supposed to go, and I think somebody was telling me, like, you know, the jokes were like, ooh, that was.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the way a roast is supposed to be.
And I think it's comedy in general. Sometimes you gotta toe that line, you feel what I'm saying? You gotta try to hit that line, and sometimes you go over, sometimes you hit it right on the nail of the head, you feel what I'm saying?
Right.
That's comedy.
This is the part of the conversation that is going to get the most attention and generate the most debate, because Cam Patterson defended Tony Hinchcliffe, not aggressively, not dismissively, but clearly. Shannon Sharpe asked him directly, what do people get wrong about Tony Hinchcliffe? And Cam's answer was simple. You have to know the guy, not know of him, not know his reputation, know him personally. He said Tony helped change his life. He said Tony is a good person, real good. And then he added something that is actually more interesting than a simple defense. He said there is a difference between the persona Tony projects as a stand-up and who he actually is as a person. The stand-up persona is built on edge, on shock, on going to places other comedians will not go. That is the brand. That is what Kill Tony is built around. And Cam is not excusing that or pretending the George Floyd joke did not happen. What he is saying is something more subtle. He is saying that when you watch someone on stage or in a viral clip and you form a complete picture of who they are as a human being, you are probably missing something. You are seeing a performance. You are seeing a specific version of a person that they have curated for a specific purpose. The person behind that is more complicated. He compared it to that friend everyone has, the one who seems like a complete jerk to people who do not know him, but who you know to be a genuinely good person once you actually spend time around him. That analogy is going to hit differently depending on who you are and what your experience has been with Tony's material.
I mean, you just gotta know the guy. I know the guy, like, I know him for real, you feel me? That's like, he helped change my life. So I know him. I think just like the persona he give off as a person, like as his stand-up, you know, that's what he want to give. You feel me? But in reality, he's a good guy.
Really good.
You feel me?
Because, you know, some of the things, I mean, he said I guess he said something about Puerto Ricans once, and he said something about, I think really, and especially the George Floyd situation. And I think people are like, come on now, bro. Because, and sometimes, you know, Cam, you can disguise, you know, truth disguise jokes. So about how you really feel, but oh man, that's just a joke. Man, you know I'm just playing, just joking. Nah, bro, that wasn't, I ain't really like that. And I think that's what some of the people perceive him as that.
Yeah, you gotta know the guy though. It's like, you know, everybody got that friend that people might be like, man, I got an asshole, but you know him, be like, nigga.
Yeah.
Now here is where Cam's honesty becomes genuinely interesting, because even as he was defending Tony as a person, even as he was contextualizing the roast format and explaining why certain jokes exist in these spaces, he did not pretend the George Floyd joke was fine. He said it hit different, not because he was trying to score points with a particular audience, not because he was being politically careful, but because of who he is and where that particular piece of history sits in his body. He said the George Floyd situation connected to him directly as a black man, not because of the politics around it, not because of which side of any debate you land on, but because of the basic human reality of watching someone die under another person's knee for 9 minutes on camera. He said it did not matter what George Floyd was doing before that moment, what his record was, what the circumstances were. Human to human, what happened was wrong, and that is where his reaction was rooted. What makes his take particularly honest is what he said about timing. He said the George Floyd joke happened in the middle of a long roast where a lot of things were flying fast. He did not have time to process it fully before the next thing was already happening. It put him in the red, his words, not in tears, not in anger, just in that specific emotional place that being black and watching that particular reference get used as a punchline puts you in. He also made a point that tends to get lost in these conversations. He compared the reaction to the George Floyd joke with the reaction to a Charlie Kirk joke that happened in the same roast. The Charlie Kirk joke generated no protest, no calls for accountability, no community statements. And Cam did not say this to score political points. He said it as an observation about what different communities treat as untouchable and what that asymmetry means.
What was the process? Tell me the steps in which you get the call from Kev or Kev's people like, hey, bro, we want you to be in this movie with us, and you like, this really Kevin Hart? This really Kevin Hart people? Y'all for real?
Nah, it was the thing. What happened? I got an audition for it at first. I did an audition, and then I went to LA to do the audition.
Okay.
And then I was on the road. I went back on the road. I had to go to Portland the next day.
Okay.
I got a call back to go do the screen test with Kevin. So I had to leave the road for a day, go to LA, and then get to the hotel. It's, real celebrities, real stars in the waiting room, you know what I'm saying? Like waiting to do the. First of all, when I get there, I'm thinking to myself, oh, these real actors.
Yeah.
This ain't for me. I ain't finna get nothing like this.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? And the funny thing is like,
Shannon Sharp then shifted the conversation to something that had been circulating online since the roast dropped. A lot of people were calling Kevin Hart a puppet, a sellout, someone who had been compromised by his relationship with Netflix and allowed content to air that he should have stopped. Cam pushed back on this, not defensively, but from the position of someone who actually knows Kevin Hart and has watched him work up close. He made a point about what it actually looks like to be a professional at the level Kevin Hart operates at. He described watching Hart on set, how he would be on his phone mid-conversation, talking about something completely unrelated, and then the moment the director called action, he could flip a switch and go directly into a scene with long monologues that he had clearly memorized perfectly. That level of professional discipline, according to Cam, is not the behavior of someone who does not know what he is doing or who can be puppeted into anything. Hart is a workhorse who controls his environment and knows his business inside out. And then he said something that applies not just to Kevin Hart, but to the broader question of how entertainers get judged by the internet. He said, the people around Kevin Hart every day, the people who actually cut checks and work alongside him, are not calling him a sellout. They are congratulating him. The people calling him a sellout are people online who have never met him and are reacting to a clip from a roast that lasted several hours. That gap between how someone is perceived online and how they are understood by the people who actually know them is a theme that runs through Cam's whole perspective on this situation.
He was the best, bro. He gave so much like good advice, dog, but I think the best thing he did for me was just being able to watch him, like him move. Like he's just
it's amazing how they turn it off and turn it on, ain't it?
Not even. He a workhorse, bro.
Oh yeah, he go all the time.
Like you meet somebody like that, and it's just like you see why he's been doing what he's doing for so long.
Success that he's had, yeah.
Because he just, he'd be on the phone talking about something at one point, and then we'll get right into the scene. And Kev got like monologues, long parts where he's talking, and look at it one time and go straight into it.
The Kevin Hart roast controversy is really a specific instance of a much broader tension that has been building in comedy for years. And Cam Patterson's perspective sits directly at the intersection of the two sides of that tension. On one side, there is the argument that comedy has always operated at the edges of what is acceptable, that the whole point of a roast is to say things that cannot be said anywhere else, that limiting what comedians can say based on the perceived sensitivity of certain topics is a form of censorship that ultimately weakens the art form and produces bland, safe content that nobody actually wants to watch. On the other side, there is the argument that certain references, particularly to real events involving real people who experienced real trauma, are not just edgy jokes. They are choices, and choices have weight. And when you are broadcasting a joke about a man who died on camera to millions of people, the fact that it is technically a joke does not erase the impact it has on the people for whom that death was not a cultural reference point, but a lived wound. Cam does not land cleanly on either side of this debate. He gave both arguments their due. He contextualized the roast format. He defended Tony as a person. And he also said the George Floyd joke put him in the red. What his perspective ultimately represents is something more honest than most of what has been said about this situation publicly. He is someone who loves comedy, who has built his life around it, who came up in the exact culture that produced the joke in question, and who still felt the weight of it in a way that surprised him. That discomfort is not a contradiction. It is just what it actually feels like to exist in multiple worlds at once.
People that know President Trump, they swear by him. And people that's not familiar, like, come on, man, because before he ran for politics, he was the most rapped about person.
Yeah.
Everybody told me, I want to be like Donald Trump or the ghetto.
Yeah.
I'm Donald Trump this, I'm Donald Trump that. And then as soon as he became political,
It was like, yeah.
they look at him in a different light. So you think if people got an opportunity to know Tony,
they'll fuck with him.
Okay.
I mean, it's like a thing, it's just that, bro. If you got an opportunity to know the guy, you'll
Right.
fuck with him. Because like, I mean, that's just his brand economy.
Here is where all of this lands. Cam Patterson came out of this conversation having said something genuinely complicated. He defended Tony Hinchcliffe. He said the roast format is what it is. He gave Kevin Hart credit for his professionalism and his work ethic. And he said clearly and without drama that the George Floyd joke still put him in the red. Those are not contradictory positions. They are what it actually looks like to process something that is both artistically defensible and personally uncomfortable at the same time. Most people who have weighed in on the Kevin Hart roast have picked a side. They are either defending every second of it in the name of comedy freedom or condemning the whole thing as proof of systemic racism in entertainment. Cam Patterson did neither. He said, I knew what I was getting into. I know these people personally. I understand the format, and that particular joke still hit different for me. And I am allowed to hold all of those things at the same time. That kind of nuance does not go viral the way outrage does. It does not fit cleanly into a tweet or a take, but it is probably the most honest thing that has been said about the Kevin Hart roast since it aired. Drop a comment below letting us know where you land on this. Do you think the George Floyd joke crossed a line at the roast, or was it just the format doing what roasts do? And subscribe so you do not miss the next breakdown.